Hey everybody, Brian Zane here with my review of NXT 2.0 for December 13th, 2021. The big thread with this show is how naughty of a boy Grayson Waller is. It opens up with the recap of Johnny Gargano's farewell speech last week where he gets beat down by Grayson, put through a table and everything. So the whole thing is the whole world hates Grayson for this now. How dare you destroy our Johnny Gargano? Everyone hates him. The fans do. The wrestlers do. We see it throughout the whole night. Everywhere he goes, everyone wants a piece of Grayson Waller, or everyone just hates Grayson Waller and wants nothing to do with him. If there's one thing you take away from this episode, is that Grayson Waller is a baddie, and we'll get more to him in a little bit. But the show opens up officially with a no-holds-barred match as Cameron Grimes takes on Duke Hudson, still wearing the blonde wig with the wrestling headgear on there. Cameron starts off with a lot of outpacing and outsmarting. That's the story they really want to drive home with this matchup, and there are weapons involved, of course, it being no-holds-barred. Duke catches Grimes out of the corner and slams him into this open chair set up in the ring. The poker table is set up during the break. You got to keep the poker theme consistent here with these guys. Cameron goes for a cave-in, but Duke catches him and powerbombs him through it for a kick-out. Hudson gets out the hair clippers because he's run out of things to do, I guess. But Grimes comes back, hits a poison Rana, and Duke falls right into that open chair, and Grimes hits the cave-in off that to win. So color me shocked that Grimes actually wins 2 matches in a row here against Duke, and he actually rips the wig off at the end to reveal that Duke is totally bald underneath. So man, they've just trounced Duke Hudson here. I mean, I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm not saying he's buried or anything. I'm just saying I was just surprised that Grimes kind of won that rivalry in the end. That was not what I expected. Cora Jade interviewed backstage. She talks about her match coming up with Dakota Kai and how her shoulder is getting better, so she's cleared to compete. Then Dakota walks into the interview space and tries to warn her, like, hey, your new friend, Raquel Gonzalez, she's going to use you up and abandon you like she did to me. And Cora calls Dakota mom and says that beating her will bring her one step closer to being the NXT Women's Champion. And Dakota does not know how to handle, she cannot handle being called mom, doesn't know what to do with that information, which I thought was pretty funny. And then we go to a segment where Briggs and Jensen are going to a country concert. A country concert? That's right, a country concert. And they're going with Casey Catanzaro and Caden Carter, and you see the 4 of them kind of hanging out together, and I think Jensen wants to dance with Caden, but then Casey kind of intervenes, and the 2 girls are dancing, and they like hug, and then we get this shot where the camera zooms in on Briggs and Jensen, and they're like, oh, like they can't believe they just saw 2 ladies hugging, what? And so that was just really weird. Like, is it implied that they kiss when the ladies are off camera and that's why they look like that? Or is it just, I can't believe this? That was weird to me. So here's our one live in-ring segment with Grayson Waller for the show. Of course, he comes out to a chorus of boos. He throws Johnny Gargano's line kind of back at the fans, using that line he did last week where he says, you'll always win if you bet on yourself. Says he's the face of NXT now, and he ended Gargano's career. He pulls up a bunch of people like having tweeted mean tweets to him about how much of a baddie he is, and they hate him so much and everything. He'll never be the face of NXT. And then at the bottom of the screen, you see a tweet from Wade Barrett where he says, well, what a piece of shit, I think I like him. And then Waller throws it right back at him saying, you know what, it's not 2010 anymore, I don't care what you have to say. So not ingratiating himself to anybody, face or heel. So he's an equal opportunity habitual line stepper. So he also calls out Vic Joseph saying, you know, oh, your best friend was getting beat up last week and you didn't do anything to stop me with that. What a punk. And then when it's all over, he says, you know, the only thing I need is Grayson Waller. He leaves. And Vic Joseph with a great line at the end saying, Wade, let's take the high road in this case. He's not even verified on social media, blah, blah, blah. Just like not even missing a beat, goes on to the next thing. I thought that was pretty good. But yeah, again, just Grayson Waller, the whole theme of this show is just showing you how much everyone hates him. And we're not done yet. We'll see what more of that story in the moments to come. We hear from Malcolm Bivens and the Diamond Mine. They're getting ready for their respective matches later on in the night. Then it's time for Lashing Out with Lash Legend, and her guests are Jacket Time, Ikemenjiro, and Kushida. We see Karen Q staggering past, still in her pajamas. They put over their style strong fashion sense and everything. Lash wants to know what their beef is with GYV. They bring up that phrase again, very sensitive operation line that was kind of brought up a couple weeks ago backstage. And they say in Japanese that GYV have no respect. And I love Jiro's line here where he says, we always have smiles on our faces, but we're going to be wiping the floor with yours. And there's this tension. Lash doesn't know what to do with it. And Jiro just goes, Jacket Time? And like gets a big laugh at everything. Like, Ikemenjiro is just all over the place. In the last week, I have seen this just wide range of emotions and settings from him, and it mystifies me. Amari Miller takes on Ivy Nile of the Diamond Mine. It's a pretty short match here, but they do give Amari some offense here, which surprised me. There's a nice Ivy's gonna kill you chant as well to start things off. I love how in a very short amount of time and very little exposure in the grand scheme of things, Ivy is already put in this position of being this complete beast. They call her the pit bull of the Diamond Mine, and the fans have bought into it completely. She is very believable and convincing in her role right now. So like I said, Amari has a nice run, but Ivy snuffs it out and gets her in that neck crank submission to win handily. Zion Quinn's interviewed backstage about what Elektra Lopez's motives might have been last week, feeding him the brass knuckles. He says, "Now I understand the rules of the game you're playing, Elektra, so game on." He goes to leave, and then we see Robert Stone show up, and he's waiting to be interviewed, but he's getting no respect here. He cuts off the interview lady and says, people are going to take me seriously from now on. Then Von Wagner storms in, and he basically says, he's going to smash, beat his next opponent into the ground. Why? Because he can. His promo voice, especially the lines he was given here, I didn't care for it. I don't think his delivery was very good in this one. That was kind of awkward to me that he leaves and then Stone is just, intimidated by his presence. The continuing saga of MSK and Shaman Riddle up next. The continuing story of, dude, what's in the bag? So they reach the bag. There's scissors, these little small junk and everything in there. Then we get this gag where it's to put the arm all the way in with the gimmicked hole at the bottom of the bag and through the table and everything. Pulls out a baseball bat, a traffic cone, the John Cena version of the U.S. Championship belt from way back in the day, and Riddle's all this clutter is symbolic of what's weighing you down, your lack of focus and everything, and your quest to regain the tag titles. And so then they're how do we regain our focus? And then Riddle's just reaches in, pulls out a scooter of his, and they're like, how'd you get that in there? I'm like, wait a minute, I thought it was your bag. I don't think Riddle put anything in there, but they each pull out their own scooters and they ride off. Wow, this was dumb even for this bit, I felt. It's Harlan's in-ring debut. He makes his way out accompanied by Joe Gacy as he takes on Gururaj. Also, rapper Westside Gunn is in the front row. He was there apparently to watch Harlan specifically, so apparently big Harlan fan. This is just total squash. Harlan bashes Guru's head into the mat repeatedly, picks him up with a version of the powerbomb to win. Then after the match, Gacy asks him if he feels better. Harlan shakes his head no, goes back to the beating until Gacy eventually stops him. And then a couple of segments later, we get this moment where they're going down the stairs and security is trying to usher them out. Harlan just grabs one of the coaches by the neck and fucking throws him face down a flight of stairs. You don't see him landing, but then they cut to him and he's gasping for air and he's convulsing on the floor as Harlan just stands there stone-faced, and Gacy's got this euphoric smile on his face. He's very happy with what he saw there. But Jesus, what a graphic moment that was. Unusually violent for what else you normally see on NXT. But I guess if they're going for that kind of edgier demographic or presentation, yeah, that'll do it, but boy, it stood out. LA Knight pulls up to the arena. He's asked about Grayson Waller. He manages to fit the words butthurt and incel in the same promo and says he wants to find Grayson Waller and beat him up good. And then it's time to see Cora Jade taking on Dakota Kai, and the winner of this match will face Mandy Rose for the championship. Mandy is on commentary for this one. As the match goes on, Dakota tries to exploit the shoulder injury. She pulls Cora's shoulder into the ring post at one point, really hitting her with everything she has here. And the story is Cora is very resilient, kicks out of everything that's being thrown her way. Dakota grabs old Shovelly to finish the job, but she's fighting with the referee over it. And then after the tug of war, Cora rolls Dakota up to win the match in a bit of an upset here. And Dakota beats Cora down after the bell. And then Raquel Gonzalez comes in and makes the save. And those two brawl their way out of the building. And they just fight for a while as the show goes on. And then we see the rest of Toxic Attraction make their way to the ring. They have their entrance. Gigi Dolan's wearing a Jimmy Rave t-shirt. So that was a very cool little tribute to the late Jimmy Rave. And then that's just kind of a distraction for Mandy to beat Cora up. And so the three of them take her out. And so, yeah, that's the feud they're setting up for the women's title match. I'm guessing New Year's Eve, New Year's Evil is when they're going to be having that title match, which seems like a good length of time to build a nice feud between these two. Up next, Tony D'Angelo, the heel that everyone cheers, takes on Andre Chase. This is is another one of the matches tonight where it's, you know, good back and forth. You see each opponent get a little something in, but it's fairly obvious who's going to win this one. I do like more of the student section shenanigans with Andre Chase. I love the fact that this week there's a dude with a flag just running up and down the stands like someone from the cheer team after a touchdown or something, which I thought was pretty hilarious. But yeah, pretty academic. Tony D'Angelo ends up winning with his twisting fisherman neckbreaker. Also worth noting, he's got his little like a trophy case he came to the ring with Pete Dunne's mouth guard that he stole from him at War Games. So then after the match and after Tony wins, he cuts a promo saying, you know, he's done everything he says he was going to do in NXT. Pete Dunne interrupts and basically he wants to fight him. Tony tries to balk and try to get away from him, talks his way out of it for a second. He goes for a cheap shot though, but Dunne catches him. He snaps the fingers and everything and runs off, and Tony runs off. Pete smashes the trophy case and reclaims his mouth guard, pops it right back in there. I do like how this angle has been built since even before War Games. Like it was a tenuous connection to justify them being in the War Games match, like as rivals, but I think they played into it well in that match itself and how they've continued it on in the last couple of weeks. We get a shot of the medical area and the guy who was thrown down the stairs is like still there in a neck brace on this like reclined table in there. I'm like, dude, shouldn't he be in the hospital after a move like that? I'm sorry. He does go later according to Vic Joseph's update, but like it just seemed weird he was just not there yet. Our next match sees Boa taking on Idris Enofe, and Boa has of course embraced this like darker power, trying to control it and everything. It doesn't really translate much in the ring other than like he's just really good at striking and he's very strong with it. There's good back and forth here. Boa hits that Tongan death grip to kind of set up Idris for a spinning kick to win. I mean, not much to say about the match. I didn't see too much that was like special about it, but it wasn't a bad match either. And again, another one of those matches where it's like, hey, let's kind of showcase both guys evenly, but you kind of know just based on the build, like who's going over. Raquel Gonzalez is beside herself in the locker room after the big brawl with her and Dakota spilled out and went for a while backstage. She says, you know, she's got to get Dakota out of her life, and she says she wants to end their relationship the same way it began in a street fight, and that match is happening next week. That should be a good one. I think those two work very well together. And then we see outside the building, Grayson Waller is getting into LA Knight's sports car, and he drives off, and after the car leaves, you can see LA's body is like behind the car. He's just laid out by Grayson beforehand, before the cameras are rolling. I have to say, I like how they spent the whole episode really just building up Grayson as this huge prick. Like this was kind of his coming out moment, was this show, and like, you know, universally detested for what he did to Johnny Gargano, which I think is funny because like I feel that what Tommaso Ciampa did to Gargano was like a whole lot worse than anything Grayson Waller did last week, but it is what it is, I guess. And so, I mean, they really did a good job in making him look like the absolute worst. And when I say like the worst, I do mean that positively. Jacket time versus the Grizzled Young Veterans in a grudge match here. And honestly, the best part of this match to me is Wade Barrett on commentary saying they should be called jacket off time. No, I mean like taking the jackets off. Like, no, we know what you meant, Wade. The Creed brothers are looking on from the stage at one point in this matchup here. And then near the end, they go down to the ringside area to get in GYV's face, but they just kind of like fake him out. They turn around and they walk right into a couple of the dives from Jiro and Kushida, and then they hit their double team finisher to win the match. We see Malcolm Bivens and Roderick Strong backstage getting ready for the match when Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams cut them off. Then Malcolm doesn't seem very fazed by it, saying, you know, we don't need luck, but you guys might. And then in the background, it's revealed there's this piece of Dexter Loomis artwork that shows him chasing after Trick Williams. We find out those two are going to be having a match next week, in fact. And then we go to our main event time as Roderick Strong in his continuing quest to take on guys much bigger than him, because I guess the Cruiserweight division is that shallow at the moment, takes on Bron Breakker. It's Malcolm Bivens' big money match is the way they're building this thing here. Hayes and Williams show up again in the villain's balcony, then they leave during the break, and Breakker is on this big comeback during the match. I love the fact that like Strong is so good as a bump dummy for Breakker, because like those two combined had some really fun looking just like bam, amazing slams and stuff. And the way Roderick sold for Braun here was really good. Breakker with a press slam for the clean win on the Cruiserweight champion. I like this matchup here. I think it was another good test for Braun. I think that he and Strong worked pretty well together. I think that having an opponent like they can bump their ass off for someone like Bron Breakker is only going to help both guys. It makes them both look good, I think. Then after the match, though, Tommaso Ciampa jumps Breakker, hits the Willow's Bell on him, and then gets in his face as as he's prone on the ground saying, welcome back to the deep end as we fade to black. I was wondering when Ciampa was going to show up in this event. I thought there was a distinct lack of champion for most of this show. And so it was good to see him back there. And yeah, again, we are just a few weeks away, it seems, from this New Year's Evil. And a lot of time to build between these two, because we've already had it established since well before Halloween Havoc. And again, they've been doing a pretty good job keeping this angle going along. My grade for this week's NXT is a C, right down the middle for me this time around. There were a couple of good things throughout the show. I did appreciate some of the character building and the world building they did, in particular with guys like Grayson Waller, for example. It was just, kind of a meh show for me. It was just, I didn't feel strongly one way or the other on the whole about the episode. But like I said, we still have a few weeks to go until their big special at the beginning of next year, and so they got time. I think they're afforded kind of a lull period right now, but now's the time. After this, they gotta ramp things up. But what'd you think of the show this week, folks? Let me know in the comments section below. And of course, tomorrow night, I'll be back here to review Winter is Coming, that big show AEW is running with Hangman Page versus Bryan Danielson in the main event. I cannot wait for that one. But until then, folks, I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.